It's a long way to the top. If you want to rock and roll, you want to rock and roll. Driving on the highway, going to a show. Stopping on the byway, playing rock and roll. Getting round, getting stoned, getting beat up, getting a bone, getting high, getting shook. I'll show you folks, it's harder than it looks. It's a long way to the top if you wanna rock and roll. It's a long way to the top if you wanna rock and roll. It's either doing one night stands, driving a rock and roll band. It's a long way to the top if you wanna rock and roll.
Good evening, race fans, and welcome back to the NASCAR Coca-Cola Cup Series here on ESPN. It is race number 20 out of 36. I kind of stumbled over my season Ks there, but nonetheless, getting started here from New Hampshire. It's the New England 300 here from the Northeast as we take you to the racetrack for your starting lineup for tonight's race. Starting on pole, it's going to be Kurt Busch in the 01 car, joined by his teammate Jamie McMurray in the 40 on the front row. Looking down the rest of the grid is Jimmy Johnson will start from the 3rd position and Carl Edwards in 4th. 5th, Jeff Gordon in the 24, and DJ Kennington will be in 6th. 7th belongs to Elliott Sadler, and 8th, Bobby Labonte. 9th will be Robbie Gordon, and 10th place, Ricky Hendrick. 11th, Scott Riggs, and John Andretti in the 12th position. 13th will be Dale Earnhardt Jr. and Kyle Busch in the 14th spot. Regan Smith P15, and Mark Martin in the 16th position. 17th will be Casey Atwood, and 18th will be Greg Biffle. 19th, it'll be the 96. That is Jeff Green. And 20th, Ricky Craven in the 55 after a suspension was dealt out to Jack Sprague in the 55 last week following that race incident when he tried to pit from the outside, but nonetheless, all that happening in the Hendrick garage brings Craven into the 55 car this week. He'll be in 20th, John Wood 21st, and 22nd, Ryan Newman in the 12 car. Tony Stewart will start in 23rd, and 24th, Sterling Marlin. Ron Hornaday Jr. in P25 with Scott Wimmer in the 26th spot, Kevin Harvick P27, and Casey Kane in the 28th position. 29th will be Travis Kvapil in the 4, and 30th, Martin Truex Jr. Ricky Rudd from P31 with Ryan Vickers in 32nd. Todd Bodine will be in the 33rd spot, and 34th, TJ Bell. 35th will be Matt Kenseth, and Jeremy Mayfield in the 36th position. Christian Elder will be in P37, Tim Fadua 38th, Eric Norris 39th, and Johnny Sauter in 40th position. And rounding out the field in 41st and 42nd, Boris Said in the 00, Kirk Shelmerdine in the 72. Take you to the track here in New Hampshire for the most famous words in motorsports.
Drivers, start your engines!
Stock cars roar to life as we get set here from New Hampshire. 90 laps your race length here today under the sun in New England. as Kurt Busch and Jamie McMurray, two Ganassi cars to lead the field to the green here today. Ganassi continuing their strong form here at New Hampshire as we get set for a bit of flat track racing, and usually one of the drivers' tracks on the calendar here. You see some of the drivers who are a bit faster on these ovals, and especially who are good at this type of racetrack, prevail. It's less of an equipment race, more of a driver race at this racetrack.
Not only that, but it also can be a strategy race as well. They call this track the Magic Mile because you have to know the magic numbers to get to the end on your fuel strategy. So it's just as important to the crew chief and the pit crews as it is the driver at this racetrack. So it should be a good one. And something else to note about this racetrack, the bottom lane is actually banked a little less than the rest of the racetrack, which makes it extremely racy. Makes it very interesting, not just like any other flat track. We'll see who can tame it today, as we're about to drop the green flag.
Green flag will wave for Busch and McMurray. We are underway here from New Hampshire. 90 laps, your race length today. Field screams up to speed on the opening lap, and Kurt Busch will be your leader from the pole after lap number 1. McMurray under fire from Jimmy Johnson for second behind his teammate, as everybody all bunched up as we usually see on the first run at this racetrack. You see the two different lanes filter in, as you mentioned. Inside is a little less banked than the outer line, so the outside can give you some runs. We see the top prevail sometimes. It's difficult to pass, but it's very racy. We see a lot of side-by-side, even if a lot of those moves don't get completed. And it's just a matter of who can make it work and find the grip to pass each other. So far, 01, 40, 48, all still first through third, as Jimmy Johnson's still trying to find a way around McMurray for second behind the race leader, Kurt Busch.
And on a track like this where it's flat and you're racing each other and you're switching around lanes and moving around, tire conservation is going to be very, very important, as well as the fuel strategy. So, you want to drive as hard as you can every lap, but you also have to make sure that you're conserving your equipment enough to get through runs here. It can be very treacherous. If you don't, you will fall back through the order.
Absolutely, tires do play a very big factor at this racetrack. We've seen that here before. It was 3 wide behind the leaders there. We saw DJ Kennington up the middle, made up a couple spots. Nice move by the rookie. Still Jimmy Johnson and Kurt Busch for this race lead right now, as the 48's going to get underneath the 01 for the first time into turn 3. Side by side, and Jimmy Johnson trying to make quick work of Kurt Busch, and does. He's got the lead here off of turn 4.
Johnson rockets out front, and this championship still very close, could go either way. There's a lot of season left to go, but Jimmy Johnson, he wants to try to put a gap on Robbie Gordon. Nobody's really been able to separate themselves in the past few races. It's been very, very hard for either of those two to get away from each other. They're just really feeling things out and seeing what each other's weaknesses are, but they haven't really found them yet. So it's going to be important. It's going to be really important for both of these guys going forward to win races. You have to make sure that you're winning races and getting the maximum amount of points that you can over your title rivals. And that could very well be the difference at the end of the season.
Absolutely, and we've seen a lot of that between these drivers, of course, and I'd argue between these two, they don't really have a weakness. The 31 and 48 car over the course of this season, these two teams combined have just added up to only 2 finishes outside of the top 20 in the field over the course of this year. And that's 2 teams that are competing for the championship right now. This 31 and 48 combined have finished outside the top 20 just twice. Only 1 race apiece. It's been so consistent between these two. We saw Robbie Gordon with a 7-race top 5 streak during the summer portion of the season. That came to an end last week when he finished 18th, but arguably was his best race of the stretch that last weekend. He got the pole and ran through the field about 3 times that he drove through the field, had to find his way through traffic, just so many setbacks, and still recovered to finish in 18th position, which is a show of a championship contending team, if you ask me. Him and this 48 have been untouchable this year, and it is a stark contrast compared to last year with how many different drivers we saw compete up front. But this year, these two are the teams to beat.
Absolutely, and it's a tale of Chevrolet and just how strong that they have been at the top of the field. There's a lot of Chevrolets out there, but those bow ties, when they're strong, they're all strong. And this year, there's really been two up front, but I would argue a guy like Jeff Gordon, sitting in the third position right now, has been maybe not quite as fast, but still extremely quick. Hasn't quite had the finishes to show for it, but Chevy as a whole has been on this year. It has been really, really fun to watch.
Without a question, you look at the top three in the standings who are all Chevrolets in a row, 48, 31, 20. Also three different teams, of course, Hendrick, Childress, and Gibbs. The 31 of Robbie Gordon leading the points, Johnson second, and Harvick about 300 points back in third. Of course, it's been the story of those two who have just ran away from the rest of the field in the first half. But then you look at Dodge. You see three Dodges in a row, and also from a couple different teams, just two different teams. It's Kurt Busch, Tony Stewart, and Kyle Busch, a couple of Ganassi cars, and then that Petty team, the 43 car of Kyle Busch, and then, only then, do you get to the first Ford in the field. That would be Casey Kane in 7th in the standings. And right behind him, two different Chevrolets again, it's Bobby Labonte and Jeff Gordon. So without a question, these bow ties have absolutely been the fastest OEM this year. But Dodge has nipped at their tails just a little bit, but Chevrolet, of course, sweeping the top three in the standings right now, haven't really had a whole lot of competition for it this year.
And then I would like to mention, just real quick, now going for the 4th position, Dale Earnhardt Jr. It's now lap 12. He started in the 13th spot, so he has climbed his way through this field. Looks like that 88's got some speed, and could he finally break that winless drought? It's been a rough go at it, but this season has been a nice improvement for Dale Earnhardt Jr. He really was lacking confidence, but coming into this season, we really saw a Dale Earnhardt Jr. that we hadn't seen in a few years. He was happy. He was optimistic. Hasn't quite gotten a win yet, but the speed is there. And he looks like he has a piece underneath him today. So, man, what a story that would be, and and the fans would go absolutely crazy here in New England if he could get it done.
Without a question, we've seen that 88 car. They've been a staple of consistency this year. Haven't won a race yet, as you mentioned, but they sit exactly 10th in the points. They've been right around that 7th through 11th or so range, and have gone up and down a little bit. He's got 3 top 5s, 8 top 10s on the year. It's been a really good season for that 88 car, and though they haven't quite been able to get close enough to the win, they've been pretty close a couple times, but it's usually been the back of the top 5, just outside the top 5 that they finished this year. But that 88 team has been really strong, and a lot of drivers have said if there's any driver that's looking to snap a winless streak, it's that 88 car, and Dale Earnhardt Jr. hasn't won a race since 2002. It was race number 9 of that season that he last went to victory lane. It was a struggle of a time with DEI before the very team that he called home for his entire career in the Cup Series up to that point finally closed down, one that he had an ownership stake in after his father passed, and he really wanted to get it done for them. But with Yates, he's just said, it's been about focusing on these top 5s, and they've brought me such good cars this year. I just want to get them a win. It's always a story of looking for the wins for a lot of these drivers who are looking for confidence, and for Dale Earnhardt Jr., it's never been closer. 15 laps completed here from New Hampshire as Jimmy Johnson in the 48 car, still your race leader. His teammate Jeff Gordon just got past Kurt Busch for second. These two Hendrick duo cars leading this race comfortably, as they have many a time this year. But it's another Dodge nipping at the heels like it has been for the story of this season. And Robbie Gordon limiting the damage. He's running in 4th in the 31. Dale Earnhardt Jr., as we were just talking about, rounding out the top 5. And DJ Kennington, the rookie winner, he's in the 6th position in the 81 car, just behind this top 5.
And DJ Kennington, what a story he has been. The Canadian driver coming from the Cast Car Series. Didn't really have a ton of expectations, but have absolutely blown everyone's out of the water. Last week in Kansas, he straight up beat Kurt Busch on speed. Straight up drove around him for his maiden Cup Series victory, and has absolutely eviscerated the Busch field this season. DJ Kennington is going to be a staple in this series for a long time to come. DJ Kennington, a fantastic race car driver. I'm so excited to see what he can do for the remainder of the season and in the future as well.
Without a question. And he's one of the drivers that kind of flew under the radar a little bit for a lot of these more competitive teams. But Coach Joe Son had some scouting on that driver and said, I really like what I see out of him, and tapped him for a Busch ride a couple years ago. And it was in 2005 that he made his rookie campaign in the Busch Series, won 3 races that year. But some had some questions, you know. 2 of those 3 wins were both on fuel strategy, and the 3rd win came at Evergreen, which is usually a bit of a chaos bowl in the Busch Series. But hadn't been that race, but he had really dominated that showing. It was the first showing where he had really proven himself up front. He finished in the top 5 in the standings that year. People really liked what they saw, but of course, still had questions. He hadn't won any big races on merit up to that point other than Evergreen, and this year has really put all of those questions to bed. It's been so competitive for him this year. There's a reason he got tapped to drive that 81 car in Cup, and he proved within 3 races why he got that ride, and it's such a good start for somebody. We've never seen a rookie like this be so quick so fast. It's been a long time at the very least, and with him fighting in the top 5 regularly since he's appeared in the Cup Series, it's clear DJ Kennington's here to stay.
And not only here to stay, but here to compete. DJ Kennington, again, as we said, he won last week in his 3rd start at a track that hasn't ever really been kind to rookies. Kansas is a tough racetrack, and one that really does favor drivers with a lot of intermediate experience. And DJ Kennington just went out there and drove like he's been in this sport for 10 years. It's been absolutely unbelievable what he's doing in that 81, a car that was really, really struggling before he hopped in it. And he has immediately righted the ship. And not only that, has given Joe Gibbs a lot of hope for the future.
Without a question, and you think about the fact that he got promoted to Cup this year and all that whole thing, and Kansas, of course, that's not really the kind of racetrack he even grew up driving. You think about the fact that he's a CAS car driver before this, and that series races mostly on the road courses and the short tracks. So this kind of racing surface, like New Hampshire, is a track that he'd be a little more familiar with, but to get your first win at a racetrack that some might not even consider you to be your best discipline is nothing short of impressive, and there is not a shortage of good things you can say about this kid and what he's been doing with that Joe Gibbs organization up to such an early point in his career too. He's got a lot of competitive years left, and for that 30-year-old, he is really looking forward to running full-time in Cup next season.
Going to look to make a move underneath Dale Jr. here.
Has been trying to work on that 88 for a while, yes. Still side by side between those two. He's gotten the nose under a couple times, Jr., using good work of that outside to hold him off. So a couple of pretty interesting drivers we've shared a lot of words about over this race, competing for that 5th and final top 5 spot. Just behind them, it's still Ricky Hendrick and Jamie McMurray, who have been battling in the back of frame for quite a while for 7th. 5 still holding him off, and still the race leader, Jimmy Johnson, comfortably holding over the 24 of Gordon. Not a whole lot of action up front so far for the race lead in this one, but Johnson has definitely brought a very quick piece, so going to be a tough task to beat that 48, but a couple of drivers who have been holding on to this top 5. It's not far apart between this front group of about 6. We're all within a shouting chance of this race win.
And obviously not yet. There's only 25 laps in, but pit strategy is going to be very, very important. More important than most tracks on the schedule, because once you get the track position, it is hard to lose it. So I think there's a good chance this race could be won in the pits. And for many drivers, they kind of dread that, but for some, you know, they have faith in their pit crew. They have faith in their crew chief to make the right choice, to make the right adjustments over the course of the race. So it's not super common that we see races decided in the pits, but this could be one of them if this goes green the whole way.
Without a question. I do believe DJ Kennington's getting a little impatient with this 88 car. That was about the 2nd or 3rd time he got into the back bumper of Junior. That was in turn 4 that last time that he gave him a little bit of a nudge. Once again, getting the nose underneath as they head into turn 3. He's been trying to make this pass for a while. Junior's been a tough cookie to crack, but looking like Kennington's going to have him this time. And into 5th place goes the 81.
Kennington cracking the top 5 once more this season, and you know, as we said, just can't say enough about the kid. He's really blowing all expectations out of the water. And as we look further through the field, got Ricky Hendrick, who has had a somewhat quiet season this season, but a good one nonetheless. Jamie McMurray, who has done a good job. There has been some speculation about his future for Jamie McMurray. There's a Ganassi not entirely sure if they're going to re-sign him yet. And so he's really kind of driving for his job right now. He's trying to prove that he deserves that ride and he deserves the chance to be in a in a championship contending race car. So Jamie McMurray driving with a lot on the line right now, doing a good job.
Without a question. And interesting to note, Ricky Hendrick would like to come back on him and note what a weird season it's been for this 5 car. He's got 5 top 5s and 8 top 10s. Those are numbers you would expect to see in the top 10 in the point standings. But for Ricky Hendrick, 16th. And the problem that it's been for this 5 team, they have had a lot of DNFs this season, whether it's been their fault or not. And most of the time it hasn't. This 5 car has really been out of these races a lot, and you can see it with their average finish. This car is carrying an average finish of 20.26, despite so many good finishes. They've had a lot of speed when they're still on the racetrack. Just been a struggle of trying to get that thing to the finish. They've had mechanical failures, crashes, anything you can name. That 5 car has had a run-in and a struggle due to that problem that they've had just trying to get to the checkered flag. But doing pretty well today, proving why they have so many top 5s and top 10s on the year. Running 7th at the moment. It's been competitive for them when they've had the cars to finish, but it's just a matter of getting to those flags, and so far for Hendrick, been a struggle this year.
And even further back, we've talked a lot about Elliott Sadler in recent weeks, and another good run for him. Started up, I believe, in 7th place in this race, is now in 10th.
Problems for the 8, Martin Truex Jr. down an engine, and that is going to be the first caution flag of the day.
And an unfortunate end to Truex's race. I mean, it's very much been an up and down season for him. He's showed some flashes, but has also had some things not go his way. Truex, I believe there's a lot of talent there, and he's proved it on multiple occasions, but just hasn't really had any sort of like consistent speed.
And without a question, that's been a story for a lot of these rookies, so tough to see that 8 car out as he made contact with Matt Kenseth trying to get off of the racetrack, not lay oil all over the place. And that was around 20, he was in 26th at the time fighting with Brian Vickers before that engine gave way there in turn 4, and Kenseth narrowly avoided a bigger accident there as Truex went into the pits. Again, just trying to get out of the way with oil going down on the racetrack. So Truex will be your first DNF, brings out the first caution. Jimmy Johnson will lead the field into pit road here, lap 33, as he and Gordon, first and second Hendrick teammates, leading everybody in. Just past 1/3 of this race completed. See how the pit stops go for your top 3 here. Johnson, Gordon, and Busch have been locked in on each other this entire race. The 48 has led the majority of it into the pit boxes as we get started on foreign fuel for all of your top drivers here. And Johnson down and away, and your race leader will win the race off of pit road. Bit of a long hold for Kurt Busch, who I believe just dropped to 4th. Kennington also down a position or 2. But Jimmy Johnson will win the race off of pit road here. Taking an intermission here from New Hampshire. 48, your race leader, been dominating the showing so far. Lap number 34 here from Loudon. Back from intermission as we get set to go green here from New Hampshire. Christian Elder in the 0 car blew up under that caution, and he is your second DNF. And Jimmy Johnson will lead the field to the green here. 48, 24, 31, 88, 01, your top 5. As Johnson, who has led the vast majority of this race, gets set to restart in the lead once more.
We'll see if anybody has anything for him, but, you know, Robbie Gordon. It would be really interesting to see a battle between these two, knowing how much is on the line. As we're about to go green once more.
Pace car into the box, and we are underway as Johnson and Gordon both away very well. Robbie Gordon under fire from Earnhardt Jr. Here comes Jeff Gordon to try to take the race lead from his teammate.
Gordon looking, but not quite going to have the momentum on the bottom lane. Looks like Johnson's going to get away back with the lead. Dale Jr. is still underneath Robbie Gordon for the 3rd spot. Going to drive it in deep. Looks like he might get the position here.
And this results in Jeff Gordon being under fire from the 88 as they head down the front stretch. Junior might be able to get even to 2nd place here, but the 24 will shut the door on him. Although maybe not. Earnhardt Jr. gets underneath him with a 2nd breath on corner exit.
This is bringing DJ Kennington into it as well. He tried to follow Junior through. Actually, just got dive bombed by Kurt Busch. So really, really racy on this restart. How about Kyle Busch? Haven't talked about him all day. Here he is, up in this battle with Casey Atwood as well. So some new names up here at the front.
Seeing some cyclings after that pit stop. 43-30 joined this fight in the front. 3 wide here in turn 2. Here comes Kurt Busch, passes both Kennington and Junior on the bottom.
And they're still 3 wide as they enter turn 3. Really squeezed tight there.
Might have been contact between the 88 and 81.
And they all keep it straight. But Kurt Busch gets a 2-fer there. Really, really nice move for Kurt Busch.
Not out of it yet as they're going to go 3 wide again in turn 1. Junior to the inside, Kennington on the outside. Who's going to win this battle? Seems like Kurt Busch will hold off both of them for now.
Robbie Gordon moved up in front of him, actually slowed down Kurt Busch a little bit. Dale Jr. going to get back underneath him. Had to breathe off the throttle. So he might go 3 wide again.
Junior couldn't stay on the bottom. Kurt Busch trying to go around the outside. Jeff Gordon fighting with Jimmy Johnson for the lead up in front of all 4 of these guys.
Gordon for the race lead. Going to stay underneath. Going to actually have the nose ahead out of 2. But Johnson going to have to run off the carry on the outside. And is going to clear back for the lead. Because Kurt Busch has moved decisively up into 3rd place. And now is challenging for 2nd. Whatever adjustment they made on the 01, looks like he's going forwards now instead of going backwards.
Yeah, definitely a great job by that 01 crew. 3 wide again behind the top 3. Robbie Gordon stuck in the middle trying to get around the 88. All 3 of them all over the place trying to find grips. Still 3 wide leaving turn 2.
And behind these guys, we got a battle between Kennington and, or not Kennington, Kyle Busch and Casey Atwood. Bobby Labonte took a little peek there, couldn't quite get underneath. But for Casey Atwood, it's been a quiet season, but a really good season. Nobody's really talked about him a whole lot, but Casey Atwood just always consistently runs in the top 15, a lot of times in the top 10. Hasn't really had any winning speed often, but just really solidly in the top 10. Great job again by him today.
Without a question, it's been another good run for that 30 car who has been fighting for a top 10 in points all season long. Jeff Gordon still knocking on the door of the 48 for the lead, has been trying to make this pass for a handful of laps and just hasn't found a way around his teammate. Things starting to settle out now, but not quite over with yet as Robbie Gordon is on the back bumper of Kurt Busch for 3rd. Also has the 81 and 88 side by side behind him.
And if I'm Jeff Gordon, you know, you want to get that move done, but you also don't want to cook your tires doing it. So I think the best course of action at this point in the run would be to just settle in and take your moves when you get a chance. Don't burn off your tires trying to make something happen and then fall back later in the run.
Robbie Gordon again trying to fight with Kurt Busch here for 3rd. They both close up on the back bumper of the 24. Might be a battle for second if Robbie Gordon can find a way underneath that DuPont Chevrolet, but still side by side for P3 into turn 3. See if Busch can maybe get around him on the outside. Still a dead heat as they leave turn 4 that time. Gordon trying to block both of these guys off for the second spot, all while setting his sights on Jimmie Johnson. It's a battle of managing both defense and offense at the racetrack like this, as we have hit halfway in the race that last time by. Gordon and Busch still side by side here. A one way up the racetrack there, all the way on the outside in turn 4. Robbie Gordon nosing ahead. Jeff Gordon looking to the outside of Jimmie Johnson, opens the door for Robbie Gordon on the bottom to try to go to second place. So now, Jimmie Johnson is the one that's going to have to try to find a way to block, though Gordon gets clear of the 31, at least for the moment. Did get in front of him there in turn 3. Still battling for this third position and even second as Kurt Busch gets to the outside of Jeff Gordon now. Robbie Gordon almost took it 3 wide.
Robbie doesn't want to let this 48 get too far ahead, but it looks like everybody's closing up to the 48. Jeff Gordon going to take a look for the race lead once more. We'll see if he's successful this time. He definitely got further to the inside than he has. He might get this move done.
Dead heat. Jimmie Johnson will still have the lead at the line with the run on the outside, but Gordon a lot farther alongside than he has been. Nose to nose as they head into turn 1. This is the end of the racetrack where the outside's just a little bit better, but Gordon pulling ahead on the bottom. Still not quite clear. Might be able to complete the move here into turn 3 this time. Let's see if he manages it. Still door to door, but Jeff Gordon into the race lead.
And that's the first time we've seen anybody be able to pass the 48 today. So we'll see what Jimmie Johnson's got now that he doesn't have the clean air. And in a flat track like this, it is very important. And it's very important, and people don't really realize it if you're not in the race car. It's hard to lead the race at a flat track. It is very difficult. You know, a lot of drivers rely on the drivers in front of them to know exactly where to brake and to go just that little bit deeper. But when you're leading the race, you can't really do that. So it's very hard to lead a race at New Hampshire or Milwaukee or somewhere like that, because as a driver, you don't have those reference points of the other drivers around you.
Yeah, without a question, and it is a lot more of a challenge than you might think. Still these two Hendrick drivers as Johnson is trying to find a way back into the lead. Jeff Gordon trying to hold off that 48, but here comes Johnson down on the bottom in turn 1.
Johnson taking a peek, couldn't quite get there. Gordon going to have to run off the top, but Johnson digging on the bottom. If these two battle for long enough, it'll bring Robbie Gordon right into this, which is what Johnson doesn't particularly want to see. But just another fantastic showing by both of these guys who have been so consistent this season.
Yeah, without a question. Gordon, Johnson still bumper to bumper. Robbie Gordon pulling up into the mix. See Kyle Busch and Casey Atwood still picking up time in the back of your frame here. Top 8 or so are all in a line here behind the race leaders, as Jeff Gordon is trying to find a way to pull away from this 48 and make his presence known in the lead, but Johnson not letting him out of his sights. Robbie Gordon would love to get to the back bumper of that 48 car and try and be a nuisance for this second position. Johnson again right on the back bumper of the 24. And we have a problem for the 96 of Jeff Green, who has a tire down, and he is going to have to stop on the racetrack. That'll bring out another caution here. So second caution of the day. Jeff Gordon leads the field back to the flag, and we are under yellow again. So that was the 96 car. Hall of Fame racing entry Jeff Green had a tire go down there, and explosively so. Had to completely stop it on the apron and get a tow back to pit lane with how much that tire carcass came apart. So tough break for the 96. Bringing out our second yellow. Jeff Gordon will lead the field into the pit lane here on lap number 55. And with a shorter run here, see if we might get some 2 tire stops here and anybody trying to pick up some track position.
We very well might, but it would be interesting to see where they cycle out at the end of the run, because just we haven't seen it today, and so nobody's got the experience on the 2 tires at this racetrack. So it would be very interesting to see if they do that, where they would cycle out at the end of the run, and if the track position would be worth it.
So we'll see here. Going to see a 2 tire stop from Newman. No tires for the 26. A lot of 2 tire stops here. 81 was one of them, as well as the 16. So this is going to shake up the field. Winner off pit road, Robbie Gordon in the 31 car takes 2 tires. Jeff Gordon cycles out a long way back. Jimmy Johnson even further.
Robbie Gordon knew he needed to do something different. He had speed, but I don't think he had quite the speed of the 24 and the 48. And he doesn't want to chance the 48 winning this race. And Jimmy Johnson now really mired back in traffic. This could be really, really good for Robbie Gordon.
See the 5 on 2 tires, 51, 55, 4, 72, 2, 44, 40 on 2 tires as well. So many drivers took 2 there. There were not a lot of drivers that took 4. Johnson and Gordon both took 4 tires, as did Kurt Busch. 83 and 28 did as well. That would be Elliott Sadler and Mark Martin. We'll take it to intermission here from New Hampshire. Coming up on 30 laps to go pretty soon here. Lap number 57 at the moment. Robbie Gordon, your race leader now. Back from intermission here at New Hampshire, and some interesting developments. All the drivers who took 2 tires there, or at least most of them, just came in for a second pit stop there. So as a result, DJ Kennington has taken the race lead, although he was one of the drivers on 2 tires. But he will be the race leader, so that is an interesting strategy call. Robbie Gordon was one of the drivers who pit in. He will be a long way back now. A lot of chaos here on this race start. But nonetheless, 81 will lead the field to the green here. Pace car peels in. Lap number 59 on the restart for the 81, and we are back green. Just bizarro strategy here on this caution. Race goes green. Ricky Hendrick jumped underneath the 40. And we're just seeing a lot of stack-ups back here. Might even see some black flags due to passing on the bottom because of whatever was going on with all these guys side by side. Jamie McMurray trying to go around the outside of Kennington for the lead.
And as we said earlier, McMurray trying to drive for his job right now. So, what a story it would be if McMurray could get the win today. Much needed confidence boost.
Tight mix at the line. 40 had the lead there. And looking like pretty much everybody is fine. Robbie Gordon a long way mired back in the pack. He's outside the top 30 now, which is disaster from what it seemed like it was going to be. Decided to make another pit stop there, which I really don't get the strategy call for a lot of those guys. Trying to stretch the fuel, I might think, but it's hard to say what the deal is with them. But it is
now
really
Jeff Gordon has driven past Kennington and is going to go for the lead here.
30 laps to go.
I mean, I guess I'm not a crew chief, but I really don't understand having to pit a second time there. I mean, there's a good chance that just absolutely decimated Robbie Gordon's race and potentially his championship lead. So I'm not sure exactly why they pit again. Maybe there was a problem, but that wouldn't explain why pretty much everyone on the strategy pitted again. So really, really bizarre development.
3 wide behind the leader, Jeff Gordon, as Jimmy Johnson tried to force the issue. Couldn't stay there. Still McMurray and Kennington for this second spot behind the leader of the 24. A tight mix up front right now. Some on 2, some on 4. 48 and 24 are both on 4 tires. Jimmy Johnson trying to get through and get at his teammate who's trying to run away with the lead. Ricky Hendrick very close there with Jamie McMurray behind the 48 and 81.
Kennington trying to hold off the 48 as long as he can, but on those 4 tires, it's going to be hard to do. But we've seen Kennington can pull impressive feats against the veterans, so we'll see what he's got in the tank here.
Still side by side with Johnson for second as the 48 tried to get underneath Jeff Gordon for the lead, but the 24 blocked him. It's 3 Hendrick cars in a line on the bottom with Ricky Hendrick behind these guys. Kennington trying to get around Johnson, cleared him on the outside.
Kennington holding on for dear life here for second, but maybe some more speed in that 81 than we originally had thought. You know, he had been sitting in the top 5, but hasn't really challenged up here for the lead. That changes now with those 2 tires. We'll see when that drop-off comes, if it comes. But DJ Kennington, just another fantastic showing today.
Without a question, but Johnson still trying to find a way around him and get at the DuPont 24. Had a great entry to 3.
He got him.
And he will just about clear him, I believe, and he did. Johnson moves back into second. 25 laps to go is your count, with the 2 Hendrick cars that have dominated this race now back up front.
And the 2 cars that could have been mired back in traffic there, but just some really weird stuff going on. Puts these 2 back at the front sooner than I think they had thought. And because of that, they have a massive gap over everyone else that they were racing.
Yeah, without a question. You look back in the pack, Robbie Gordon hasn't really picked up a whole lot of positions since this run started. Kevin Harvick in front of him was another driver on that strategy. He's picked up more spots. There's a couple in front of him right now. Brian Vickers is also a member of this club. So those guys just really stuck back there. Would need another caution or 2 to really help them out. But with the laps winding down, really running out of time to do anything, 24 has a comfortable lead over Jimmy Johnson in second at the moment, as these 2 have simply left the 81 behind and have absolutely no competition between just them. It is only them up front. Battle for 4th between Bobby Labonte and Casey Kane as the 18 moves up a position. I believe the 18 might be another one of the cars on 4 tires, but he's got a long way to go to the top 2. And yet another driver who would definitely benefit from another caution.
And we haven't really seen any cautions for incident today, but we've seen some failures, and as we get further in the run, those become more and more common, so it could be very possible we could see a late race caution, which could really shake things up.
Bobby Labonte on the back bumper of DJ Kennington for third. Couple of teammates right here as the 18 trying to get underneath him, but couldn't quite do it. Kane might have something to say about this mix now, but Labonte trying to block Kane into turn 3 here. Managed to keep him at bay. But Johnson and Gordon, with 20 laps to go, have positively checked out.
Yeah, provided we go green to the end, you know, these two are way out there. Nobody's going to get to them. Could be a race between these two.
Labonte gets clear of the 81 for third. Fourth place might belong to Casey Kane in a couple of laps here, as he will dive it very hard under the brakes into 3, and Casey Kane moves up another position. So these two, who I believe might be on 4 tires. I don't believe Kane is on 4. But I think the 18 might. Gonna get a look back at this. No, Kane is on 4 tires, so I believe both of these guys would be on 4. Yes, they are. So 38 and 18 are a couple other drivers who might have some potential speed to challenge the top 2, but again, another caution might be necessary for that. It is a pretty sizable gap here, about a second and a half between the 48 and 18. But definitely not over yet, and if these two start to battle for the race win, that might pull Bobby Labonte and Casey Kane up into the mix for first.
Absolutely, and you know, a second and a half doesn't look like a lot on paper, but at this racetrack, where we've seen the gaps be pretty stable for most of this race, that's a lot of time. That's more time than we were seeing earlier when the top 8 were in a line. So it's going to be a challenge for those guys, as Jimmy Johnson now, for the race lead, going to be side by side onto the front stretch. Gordon going to prevail a little bit, but Johnson going to be underneath him here. Johnson very well might get it down here into turn 1 and 2.
Tight battle between these two. Gordon powering ahead in the middle portion and cleared him off the corner.
And really good corner for Jeff Gordon there. I thought Johnson would be underneath him there, but Gordon just absolutely rocking it off the top there. He found something.
Absolutely, 24. I thought he was dead to rights, but definitely managed to make it work. Kane and Bobby Labonte have still been roughly battling for this third position. Have gained about 3/10 or so on the 2 race leaders, so they are slowly making up the gap, but it'll be 15 to go next time, so they really need to work together here if they want to try and catch up to this top 2.
Absolutely, and the time is winding down for a caution, which is really what they need. I don't think even if they do help each other that they'll be able to get there. But, I mean, the fact that they're trying to battle each other right now really isn't helping their cases.
Yeah, I don't think Kane really particularly wants to work together with this 18 right now. He wants first dibs at these leaders, but Johnson has dropped off the 24 just a little bit. Seemed like Gordon found some extra grip after that side-by-side battle and is running away, at least for the moment. See if Johnson saves off his right sides a little bit to try and make one final charge. 15 coming to 14 laps to go. Kurt Busch at work on DJ Kennington for the 5th spot, another driver on 4 tires, and he makes swift work of the 81 machine.
Yeah, and this is where we're starting to see the drop-off of the tires for DJ Kennington. He's, I believe, the first car on 2 tires, and was up in second there for a while, has really fell off the face of the earth pace-wise, but going to try to hold on for a top 10 here.
He's lucky that the field's so spread apart on this run as opposed to earlier on in the race. Jeff Gordon really beginning to pull away from Jimmy Johnson right now. But Johnson a way better 1 and 2 that time. Had a fantastic entry to close the gap right back up.
Yeah, but you can only dive it in that hard so many times before you lock up a right front or something. And you know, this point in the race, if you want that win, you can't cook your tires now. If you're gonna do it, you gotta wait a few laps. So, as great as that was, you really don't want to do that too often.
Seeming like he backed off just a little bit afterwards. Bobby Labonte was about 3/10 faster than 24 that last time. Telling you, little more than 10 to go. Bobby Labonte still might have a shot at this thing.
Yeah, he's going to have to give it all he's got to get there. And catching and passing are going to be two separate issues here. Been hard to pass. We've had a lot of great racing, but it's been hard to actually get moves done. So, depending on when he gets there, if he gets there, that might just be too little, too late. But there's certainly some speed there. If he can find a way around these guys, I think he can pull away.
Without a question, set a 5:01 the last time, which was, again, about a tenth and a half faster than the 24, who is trying to hold off Jimmie Johnson with 10 laps to go here from New Hampshire. Two of the sport's very best and two of the sport's most recent champions fighting for the race lead. Here comes Jimmie Johnson on the bottom, trying to get around the 24.
Gordon trying to muscle him on the top. Johnson, really good exit there. He's going to be side by side. Might even have the advantage into 3. Johnson's going to get in here.
Trying to clear him off of turn 4. Gordon hanging tight. Going to have the run. Just about a little tiny run, although Johnson had a very good exit again in the 48, trying to clear him. We'll see if he gets him in 1 and 2 here.
Gordon trying to hang on, does hold on to the quarter panel. Johnson's clear, but gonna give Gordon that run on the outside. Still side by side. Gordon trying to hang on for dear life here, but the more they battle, the more Bobby Labonte licks his chops and pins the ears back. He's gotta go, and he's gotta go now.
Seemed like he made a mistake the last time, though, and Jeff Gordon loses the lead. Jimmie Johnson back to the front. 8 laps to go here from New Hampshire as the laps continue to disappear.
And as the laps disappear, Robbie Gordon is thinking what could have been if they had just taken 4 tires. He was up in 3rd, is now sitting 25th with his title rival leading the race. So really a nightmare scenario for Robbie Gordon. 2 guys who've been inseparable finally have found a margin for error.
Gordon not quite losing sight of the 48 yet. He's got time still. Bobby Labonte really seems to have used up his stuff as he set several laps in a row slower than 30.7s. Did what he could, but it's just going to be between these two Hendrick drivers now. Coming to 6 laps to go at the line for Jimmie Johnson. Jeff Gordon doing everything he can to remain within a shouting chance of re-overtaking that 48 for first.
I'll tell you what, it looks like he lost quite a bit of time that lap.
It was a 30.9, although a little bit better in turn 1 that time by the 24. In fact, a lot better in 1 and 2 by Jeff Gordon to try and re-close the gap. Definitely not over.
I don't know, I said earlier, you don't want to do that too many times, but you're at the point in the race now where tire conservation's out the window. You got to go, and you got to make sure that you do all you can to get any fraction of a second that you can. And if Jeff Gordon can get there, it's going to be in 1 and 2. That's been his strong point the whole day. That's been where he's had a bit of an edge over Johnson.
Just trying to close the gap, but the 48 trying to scurry away and is looking like he's been able to the last couple laps, but Gordon still not falling out of his mirror just yet. 4 laps to go between the 48 and 24. This is going to be a duel down to the very end.
And down to the checkered flag. We've seen quite a few battles between these two. This is 2 of the very best to do it. Jimmie Johnson, somebody who has been just outright unbelievable this season. Gordon has, on occasion, had speed to match. Hasn't had the finishes to show for it. Which one of these Hendrick drivers is going to come out on top? Jimmie Johnson has the advantage right now, but Gordon not letting him get away.
Gordon a fraction of a second slower that last time by. 3 laps to go as the lap times are continuing to just absolutely vanish for these 2 leaders. The tires disappearing. I think Johnson's managing it a little better, though. He is pulling away.
Yeah, and that very well might have been the race right there. He pulled a massive gap off of turn 2 that time. Johnson really home free at this point.
2 more laps here from New Hampshire. Jimmie Johnson looking for yet another win. It would be his 5th of the season and one that will surely give him a massive advantage in this championship fight. Robbie Gordon in the 31 car. hasn't even been able to crack the top 20. We talked about top 20s and how these guys have been a part of it all year long. Jimmy Johnson with a lap car in the way. That's the 72 of Kirk Shelmerdine, who has been very off the pace. But nonetheless, white flag for Jimmy Johnson last time around here at New Hampshire.
And he's just got to nurse it home at this point. Don't make any really stupid mistakes. Jimmy Johnson home free with yet another victory and yet another convincing victory here at Loudon.
Into 3 and 4 for the final time. Johnson will get underneath the 72. Jeff Gordon gets all the way back up to the back bumper thanks to the lapper, but it's not going to matter off of turn 4. Jimmy Johnson, 5th win of the season, and he takes back the championship lead here today. Jeff Gordon comes up just short in 2nd place. Bobby Labonte 3rd. Casey Kane 4th, and Kurt Busch rounds out your top 5. DJ Kennington will just about hold on to the top 10 on those 2 tires. He finishes in 8th. 6th, Elliott Sadler. 7th was Scott Wimmer. 9th, another top 10 run for Matt Kenseth and a nice recovery for him today. Dale Earnhardt Jr. rounds out your top 10.
And it was a tale of the Hendrick guys the whole day, and it's the Hendrick guys who fought it out for the win. 48 comes out on top. And one that he really needed to win and take advantage of, with Robbie Gordon having the issues that he did today. So, Jimmy Johnson takes care of business and takes his 5th victory of the season. A great showing by Hendrick Motorsports as a whole today.
And there is a reason why this very man has been the winningest driver in the Cup Series since he made his Cup debut. Jimmy Johnson, your winner, and his 22nd career victory. That'll do it here from New Hampshire as the 48 car comes out on top in front of Jeff Gordon. We'll see you next week. Week number 21 is one of the most widely anticipated races of the season. We head to the Brickyard here at Indianapolis at race number 21. But I'm Caden Reif on behalf of Nate in the booth with me tonight. A pleasure to have him along and a pleasure to have you along as well. We'll see you then, and have yourself a good one.